Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I wish I could say this is a good video I'm happy to be making, but truth be told, this sucks. But I have to release a retraction in regards to the video I made in relation to E-Man-G. I didn't look into that properly. That's my bad. And to the people I argued with in my comment section, take your victory lap. You have every right to. I was an asshole to some of you, so it's well deserved. Fair enough. But that being said, I was on my open mic, and a couple people came on and clarified some details. In my defense, and this is the only defense I'll give myself in this situation, my biggest mistake was trusting E-Man-G was telling at least partially the truth. And I do believe in one or two things that he was telling the truth about. That being that his GoFundMe money is to get him out of the red of his legal fees. However, the details about the lawsuit in question, very clearly E-Man-G lied about a few things. I'm gonna go into it briefly. I gotta go into it in detail, and I'm gonna show the legal documents, which some people are gonna ask, why didn't you show the legal documents in your first video? Well, the simple answer is I didn't even know that they were publicly available. Additionally, even if I had looked for them on the normal places, I didn't know where E-Man-G lived. I didn't know what the docket number was. I didn't even know where to start looking. But the first places I would have looked would have been the wrong place, because it turns out that GW, to their credit, and keep in mind, this is coming from one of the biggest GW haters, but I have to admit this, they are going actually quite softball on somebody they have some pretty hard evidence against. They went to the Copyright Claims Board, as opposed to taking him to civil court. In Copyright Claims Court, I could have this detail wrong, but I believe that in Copyright Claims Court, or the board anyway, you can only get like a max of 30,000 in damages covered by your claims per each claim that you have against a certain person, whereas in open court it can go anywhere from 150,000 to more. So they're intentionally going through the Copyright Claims Board as opposed to an open court, which again is much more softball. So that's one big credit to GW, and again, I hate their guts. One big thing to note that E-Man-G didn't mention is if you go to the most recent material. So if you go to the first page here, there is the most recent update in regards to this case is a Fourth Amendment scheduling order. Now, for those who don't know what the Fourth Amendment is, alright, so the Fourth Amendment is the Constitution through the Fourth Amendment protects people from unreasonable searches and seizures by the government. The Fourth Amendment, however, is not a guarantee against all searches and seizures, but only those that are deemed unreasonable under the law. So, what that has to do with this Fourth Amendment scheduling order is that is the government, in regards to this case, saying, hey, you know, well, I'll read it right here. On May 31st, 2024, at a pre-discovery conference in the above captioned consolidated proceedings, that's Games Workshop versus E-Man-G, counsel for both parties indicated they reached a settlement in principle and expected to finalize a settlement agreement within 2 weeks. The Copyright Claims Board issued an order staying all proceedings until June 14th, 2024. On June 14th, 2024, Respondents' Counsel emailed the board stating that the parties have exchanged a draft settlement agreement and requested another 2 weeks stay to allow the parties to finalize the agreement. So what this essentially means is both parties, Games Workshop and E-Man-G, are trying to settle out of court, as opposed to go to the full nine. So they're basically coming to an agreement behind the scenes. So the reason the court, the Copyright Claims Board, are filing for Fourth Amendment scheduling is because, well, as it says here, the board extended the stay until June 28th, 2024. As of today, July 1st, 2024, the parties have not filed a notice of settlement and request for dismissal signal signed by both parties. Meaning, both parties said, hey, can we have some time to negotiate? We're trying to settle out of court. The Copyright Claims Court was waiting patiently, but up to that date, they did not receive any notice saying, hey, we've come to a resolution. So now they're filing Fourth Amendment scheduling order because of not unwanted search and seizures, unnecessary. They're basically giving them notice, hey, we're going to look into what you're doing right now, this little tete-a-tete you're having in the background. We want to see what's going on, because we want to know, you know, where are we going? Are we going to go all the way with this? We're going to proceed to the suits? Where are we going? That's essentially what this file is. So the importance of this document and why I'm showing it is because it shows that, at the very least, they're trying to settle out of court. And this was dated well before the interview between Eman and Side-Scrollers. Why is that important? Well, it means in the middle of his discussion with Games Workshop to settle out of court on what he has to pay with them to make up for the damages and to move on from it, he went on Side-Scrollers and talked about this whole situation like he's being sued, first of all, in like an open court as averse to the Copyright Claims Board, which is kind of deceptive. But additionally, some of the things he said in regards to Games Workshop weren't exactly respectable. Now, he wasn't dogging them the entire interview with Side-Scrollers, but he was being... Well, he made some choice comments about them, and that's not something you should do when you're trying to settle out of court with them. And that's the best thing he can hope for, because, and this is another thing that he has not brought up, despite the fact that by all accounts, with his attorneys and everything involved, he should know exactly what they have against him, and therefore he should know about the next few things I'm going to show you. So first things first, let's go over the actual cease and desist order, because my biggest defense of him up to this point was that the cease and desist order, if he said, and this is the most blatant lie he is told, is he said, I completely adhered to the cease and desist. Like, when I received it, I completely adhered to it. I have received word from his own patrons that's not the truth. The patrons have attested that he did remove the models that he created, which we'll get into that created part very shortly here, but the models he created, he removed them from Colts 3D immediately after receiving the cease and desist. However, he spent several weeks sitting on the models on his Patreon, meaning that he didn't take down the models that were behind the paywall. Now, full disclosure on this, according to people I talked to, the vast majority of the models he produced were free on Colts. Now, it doesn't matter if you put something up for free or not. If it's in breach of someone's copyright, it's their right to dictate whether something of theirs is sold or not, and they didn't want it sold by anybody or given. It doesn't matter. There's still damages in a product of theirs being released, regardless of that. Now, that being said, again, I was under the hope, anyway, that the cease and desist gave him some time to cease and desist the acts. But according to the wording of the cease and desist, Games Workshop therefore demands that you immediately cease such infringing activity. Now, that's normal for cease and desist, but sometimes they do give a stop-by date. Here, they asked for it immediately. So the moment he received this, it was probably not on July 10th. Let's say it probably took a week or so to get delivered. So mid-July, he was told, stop. Now, this is another big hole in what Eman said on his interview. He said he didn't receive the cease and desist until September. He received it back in July. As of right now, it's July 7th, 2024. So almost exactly a year from now, previously. He received the cease and desist. Around that time, he received the cease and desist. Is it possible it was delivered late? Yes. Likely? No. I would imagine if it was sent out July 10th, 2023, he received it probably within 2 weeks. So he had it. There's no way it took 2 months to deliver a letter. I'm sorry, I just don't believe that. So I don't know why he would lie about that detail. Maybe he just got that detail wrong. Benefit of the doubt, maybe he just said the wrong date that he thought was correct. But he should have received it around mid to late July, after it's being sent out the 10th. But it comes off as a lie, though, amongst everything else. And in the letter, they portion out what they standardly say in the cease and desist. Like, hey, they list off pretty much all the stuff that they caught him with re-releasing. So if that weren't bad enough, that he did receive the cease and desist well before the date that he provided. If you actually take a look at the models themselves before the models, I want to say the models for last. Before we take a look at the models, which I only saw a couple of, and the couple I saw weren't anything that GW currently produces, but I've seen a few more since. And the Bellacore one, that's the most damning one for anyone who's seen his Bellacore model. It's bad. It's really bad. But here he admits to the worst. So on his Instagram, he was sharing images of some of his 3D rips, and he was asked, "Are these models from Total War Warhammer, the video game?" He just said flat out, "Yes."
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard.
You're retarded, EMNG. I'm just going to put it to you like this. Someone asked you point blank, "Hey, did you rip these from a video game? Did you take these from a copyrighted video game?" And you just said yes. This other person asked, "Are these sculpted from scratch or based on Total War Warhammer ripped files?" He said the latter. So you admit to have stolen the files. Again, this is all stuff that EMNG has access to. I'm not showing you anything that he hasn't seen or hasn't been able to see. This is what he was served with for exhibits of his breach of copyright. And that's very clearly the Great Unclean One, Kugath, I think his name is, in Total War Warhammer 3. Like, he very clearly ripped the file, the STL, the 3D file, and then converted it to an STL. Maybe posed the model, but he converted it to an STL. Made no significant changes, if any, if I can, to be honest. I don't think, it doesn't look like he made any changes, which is really bad. This is another screenshot of one of their exhibits. It's him advertising his Patreon in attachment to the free STLs that were on cults. Again, them being free means nothing. And then this is their filing showcasing the... On this side is the models that he was advertising on cults and that he was giving out for free. And selling, supported on Patreon, might I add. And then showing their models on the side. Now, I question GW's decision to use their models here because he's ripping from Total War. So they should have showed the Total War model. But they do that in a couple of the screenshot examples. They show this. Then they show the concept art right here. Again, this is pretty weak because they're clearly very different models. But this right here is where it starts to get damning. And then we get here. This is where we just pure damnation, because this is the 3D model in Total War, and this is the model he's posed and then made a 3D STL out of. It's one for one. This is the part that makes me mad at, other than the lies and the deception, because there is a level of deception here. Because the way he colored this whole situation is that he made these models and that he sculpted this stuff. Now, granted, from the outset, I figured he took the models from Total War, because when he was asked that point blank on side scrollers, he said, "Hey, I can't comment." So that's pretty much admitting yes. So he did that, but I figured that he took the models and made changes to them, made alterations of some kind. And then I jumped to his defense like an idiot. Again, take your victory lap. Those of you who disagreed, it's fine. I get it. I would too. My fuck up, for sure. But my guy, you didn't even try and alter them. Like, I could defend you on the basis of if you creatively altered them and made them look in at least certain ways drastically different. That's how you make like a change. You shouldn't be ripping the files. You should be sculpting this thing from the ground up. That's what I do with Warglaive models. I look at the 2D art and I start with basic geometry and I sculpt it from scratch. That's how you should make 3D STLs. Ripping the files is already a terrible idea, but if you're going to do that, make drastic changes. Sculpt brand new assets onto it. Actually make it something unique. This is just comically bad. And the part that makes me turn and make this retraction this way, I could just make a retraction saying, "Hey, no more, like, hey, I fucked up, I was wrong, EMNG's in the wrong," and then moved on. But the reason I'm highlighting everything and all the mistakes is, first of all, this isn't hurting him any more than... Because what I'm showing you is what GW has against him. I'm not showing you something I put together. This is what GW has against him in exhibit. They got him nailed to the wall. On everything. So I'm not hurting him anymore. Like, this is what they have against him. So he's screwed on that front, for sure. But for me, it's the deception. That's what makes me want to highlight everything. Because the way he colored this was very different from the truth. Lie to me once, shame on you. Lie to me twice, shame on me. Well, this is you lying to me once. So shame on you. And I'm going to make damn sure you don't lie to me again. My bad, folks. I'm not even going to use the mental distress I had with my even with like the grandmother stuff. I should have been more clear-headed and should have looked into this more. I should have asked around and said, hey, does anyone have the legal documents? I didn't even do that. I just looked up the models and I saw one or two that did look like a deviation from the Total War models, so I just went off of that, and that was my mistake. I fucked up. I full sail. Accept that. And I strive to do better in the future when I report on this stuff and stuff going forward. This is my fuck up. The big part for me, the part that makes me mad is it's the cease and desist. You lied. Imanji, you lied. You said, as soon as I got the cease and desist, I immediately adhered to it. You didn't. Your own patrons told me, flat out, you still had the STLs up for 2 more weeks. What was that about? I adhered to it immediately. And even still with that, Games Workshop didn't go and take you to civil court. They're going through the Copyright Claims Board, which limits how much they can actually ask from you. And all the while, it turns out you and GW are trying to settle out of court right now, according to the latest document. Now, am I claiming the GoFundMe money that you put up for is a lie? No, I think you're telling the truth there. At least, I hope out of all the stuff that you either straight up lied about, which is with the cease and desist, despite that, I hope that you are able to settle with GW, because that's a base case for you. I hope that everything works out for you in the end and that you get out of the red. I do hope that. I just don't like the feeling of being lied to. Especially when I parroted it. But that's my fuck up as much as it is yours. Anyway, that's it for me, guys. Have a good one. Bye-bye.